All right, thanks, guys. The Jets take on the Bills, and that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. And, of course, first game on the board. Can't even find it. There we go. All right, Buffalo's the 1.5-point favorite, total at 36.5. We saw a half a point move toward Buffalo and movement downward on the total. The Bills open as the 1-point favorite, up to 1.5. Total open 37, down to 36 and a hook. 65% of the consensus are leaning toward Buffalo, 54% shaded toward the under. And right now the Jets are plus 105 on the money line. And now Buffalo, they already have a playoff spot locked up in this matchup here. Meanwhile, the Jets on the other side, believe it or not, guys, they are 5-2 straight up in their last 7, 4-3 against the spread in those games. They rank in the top 3 in rushing yards allowed, top 5 in yards allowed per play. Jamal Adams has 72 tackles on the year, 6.5 sacks, 13.5 TFLs, and 2 forced fumbles. Meanwhile, Neville Hewitt, 71 tackles on the year, 3 sacks, 6 TFLs, and 2 interceptions. Now, this Jets squad, they have outright victories over the likes of Pittsburgh and Oakland. They're also ranking in the top 5 in rush yards allowed away from home. They're ranking in the top 5 in yards allowed per play on the road as well. Meanwhile, like I said earlier, Buffalo, they already have a playoff spot locked up. They rank in the bottom 10 in home scoring, bottom 10 in offensive yards per play at home as well. Buffalo, a lot of unders for these guys. 11-4 to the under for the year, 5-2 to the under at home. New York 4-1 to the under in their last 5 themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the road dog in this one. Give me the Jets plus 1.5 and the under 36.5 in that game. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Chargers taking on the Chiefs, and that is going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs are the 8.5-point favorite at home, total at 46.5. We saw a 1-point move toward Kansas City and movement downward on the total. The Chiefs open 7.5 up to minus 8.5, total open 47 down to 46 and a hook. 68% are leaning Kansas City, 62% shaded toward the over. Right now, Los Angeles is plus 315 on the money line. The Chargers rank in the top 10 in passing, top 5 in offensive yards per play. Phillip Rivers has thrown for over 4,300 yards on the year, 21 touchdown passes. Keenan Allen, he's received over 1,100 yards this year, and he's got 5 touchdown catches. And this Chargers squad ranks in the top 5 in pass yards allowed, top 5 in points allowed on the road. Joey Bosa has 11.5 sacks on the year, 20 tackles for loss, 64 tackles total. And Rayshon Jenkins, 3 interceptions for him, 52 tackles for this Chargers secondary. Los Angeles ranks in the top 10 in rush yards allowed on the road, top 10 in yards allowed per play on the road. Meanwhile, Kansas City, they actually need a little bit of help for a first-round bye. They need to win this game, and they need an outright loss by New England. Now, keep in mind, New England is playing Miami in Foxborough. So, highly unlikely. Andy might as well, consider this week the bye week and rest up those valuable players. But anyway, Kansas City 5-0 to the under in their last 5. Los Angeles 9-6 to the under overall for the year. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take the Chargers plus 9 and the under 46.5 in that contest. Speaking of which, we have our next game. Dolphins taking on the Patriots. 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in New England. The Pats are the 15.5-point favorite, total at 45. Not a whole lot of movement on the spread, but we did see some movement upward on the total. Once again, New England's minus 15.5, total open 43.5, up to 45 even. 62% are leaning Miami. What did I say? 62? I meant 62% of the consensus are leaning toward Miami. 52% shaded toward the under. And right now, the Dolphins are plus 650 on the money line. Miami just 2-4 straight up in their last 6, 4-11 overall for the year. They rank in the bottom 10 in scoring, dead last in rushing. Now, they allowed 31 points or more in 5 out of their last 6 games. They rank in the bottom 3 in offensive yards per play, dead last in points allowed. A couple more things to add about Miami. They're just 1-6 straight up away from home. Bottom 5 in pass yards allowed, bottom 3 in yards allowed per play. Now, the Patriots on the other side, they clinched the number 2 seed with a win. That looks highly probable here. New England 7-3 in their last 10, 6-1 straight up at Gillette Stadium. They rank in the top 10 in scoring, top 10 in passing. Tom Brady has thrown for over 3,800 yards on the year, 22 touchdowns. Julian Edelman, he's got over 1,000 yards receiving on the year, 6 touchdown catches. This New England squad ranks at the top 3 in points allowed, top 3 in pass yards allowed. Very stout on the defensive side of things. Devin McCourty, 5 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, 54 tackles. Kyle Van Noy, 6.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. New England also ranks in the top 3 in points allowed at home, and the top 3 in rushing yards allowed at home as well. Dante Hightower, 5.5 sacks, 9.5 TFLs. And of course, we can't forget about Stephon Gilmore, who's got 6 interceptions on the year, along with J.C. Jackson, who's got 5 picks himself. Now, 4 out of New England's last 7 at Gillette Stadium did stay under the total. Miami's 4-3 to the under when traveling themselves. I'm going to lean New England minus 15.5, but I'm also leaning under 45 in that game. Before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines and personal leans out for NFL Week 17. It is the last week of the regular season. And once again, it's been another fun NFL season, but we do have playoffs coming up. Now, before we go ahead and dive into some more free lines and personal leans right here on YouTube, I just want to quickly remind you to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we do daily premium picks on that website beginning at just $1.99 per month. We're currently 4-0 in our last 4 crowd pleaser teasers on that website. And we have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to. And if you want to check my current Patreon record out, you can do that right now. It's on the homepage. All you have to do is click the link in the description section below. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. All right, let's go ahead and dive back into some more free lines and personal leans right here on YouTube. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, we've got the Falcons taking on the Buccaneers, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Tampa Bay. We got ourselves a good old-fashioned pick'em contest, total at 48.5. Now, we did see a 1-point fade of Tampa Bay. They did open as the 1-point favorite. We also saw movement downward on the total. The Bucs open as the 1-point favorite down to a pick'em contest. Total open 50, down to 48.5. 52% are leaning Atlanta, 69% toward the over. The Falcons are on a nice little 3-game winning streak, 6-2 against the spread in their last 8. They rank in the top 3 in passing, top 10 in offensive time of possession. Matty Ice has thrown for over 4,100 yards on the year, 25 touchdown passes. Julio Jones over 1,300 yards receiving and 6 touchdown catches. The Falcons rank in the top 10 in road scoring, top 5 in road passing. Calvin Ridley also has 866 receiving yards and 7 touchdown receptions. Austin Hooper, the big tight end, 742 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns for him. This Atlanta squad has successful covers over the likes of San Francisco, New Orleans, and Seattle. Now, Tampa Bay, on the other side, they rank in the bottom 3 in points allowed, bottom 5 in pass yards allowed. They're just 3-7 against the spread in their last 10. And they have not covered 1 point spread at home this year. That's right, 0-7 against the spread at Raymond James. They rank in the bottom 10 in home rushing, bottom 3 in points allowed at home. And now Tampa is 80% to the over in their last 10, 5-2 to the over in Tampa. Atlanta on the other side, 60% to the over in their last 5, 4-3 to the over when traveling. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the road team in this one. Give me Atlanta in the pick'em and the over 48.5 in that game. Next matchup, Packers taking on the Lions, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Detroit. The Packers are the 13-point favorite, total at 43. We saw a half a point move toward Green Bay and movement upward on the total. The Packers open 12.5 up to minus 13. Total open 42.5 up to 43. 62% are leaning Green Bay, 85% toward the over. Right now, Detroit is plus 445 on the money line. Now, Green Bay can earn a first-round bye with a win in this spot here. Detroit on the other side, losers in their last 8 straight, 1-9 against the spread in their last 10. The Lions rank in the bottom 10 in rushing, bottom 10 in points allowed. They're also just 2-5 straight up at Ford Field, just 3-4 against the spread in those 7 games. The Lions rank dead last in pass yards allowed, bottom 3 in points allowed at home. Now, Green Bay, like I said, they can get a first-round bye with a victory here. They were on a nice little 4-game winning streak. They rank in the top 10 in points allowed. Blake Martinez, 148 tackles on the year, 6 tackles for loss. Kevin King, 5 interceptions, 14 pass breakups, 63 total tackles. Kevin King, that's a guy that not a lot of people were talking about. This guy is solid in that secondary. Now, this Green Bay squad, they held their opponents to 16 points or less in 5 out of their last 6 games. And we're looking at Zadarius Smith. This guy is an absolute beast. 3.5 sacks last night against the Vikings. He's got 13.5 sacks on the year, 18 tackles for loss. Adrian Amos, 79 tackles on the year, 2 interceptions for him. This Green Bay squad ranks in the top 10 in points allowed on the road, top 3 in defensive time of possession on the road as well. Detroit on the other side, 70% to the over in their last 10. 6 out of their last 7 at home got over the number as well. I'm going to lean Green Bay minus 13 in the over 43 in that contest. Next matchup, it is going to be Saints taking on the Panthers. And that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Carolina, the Queen City. Very nice city. Love Charlotte. Anyway, New Orleans, minus 13, total 47.5. Half a point move toward the Saints and movement downward on the total. New Orleans open 12.5, up to minus 13. Total open 48, down to 47 and a hook. 63% shaded toward New Orleans, 51% shaded toward the over. Right now, Carolina's plus 490 on the money line. And although I love the city of Charlotte, especially the Mellow Mushroom, great restaurant, great pub as well, still doesn't change the fact that Carolina is on a horrible 7-game losing streak where they went just 1-6 against the spread in those 7. They rank in the bottom 10 in offensive yards per play, bottom 3 in points allowed. The Panthers are 2-5 straight up at Bank of America Stadium, 2-5 against the spread in those 7. They rank in the bottom 10 in points allowed at home, bottom 3 in rush yards allowed at home. They have outright losses to the likes of Indiana, Atlanta, and Washington. And keep in mind, they lost to Atlanta twice. New Orleans on the other side, playing for a first-round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They rank in the top 5 in scoring, top 3 in offensive time of possession. Michael Thomas, he's got nearly 1,700 yards receiving, 9 touchdown catches. Jared Cook, the big tight end, 8 receiving touchdowns for him. This New Orleans squad has scored 26 points or more in 8 out of their last 9. They rank in the top 10 in road scoring. Now, Alvin Kamara, he's averaging 4.7 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns on the ground for him. He's got over 1,200 scrimmage yards, both rushing and receiving combined. Now, Latavius Murray, he's had a pretty good year himself. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns for him. This New Orleans squad ranks in the top 5 in rush yards allowed as well, as Cam Jordan has 14.5 sacks on the year. Now, 4 out of New Orleans' last 6 games did go over the total. Carolina 5-2 to the over at home. I'm going to lean New Orleans minus 13 on the road and the over 47.5 in that matchup. Next game, Bears taking on the Vikings, and that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Minnesota. The Vikes are the 1-point favorite, total at 37. We did see a half a point fade of Minnesota and movement downward on the total. The Vikings open 1.5 down to -1. Total open 37.5 down to 37 even. 62% are leaning Minnesota, 84% toward the under. Right now, Chicago is plus 103 on the money line. Now, the Bears, as bad as they've been in certain spots this year, they're 3-2 straight up in their last 5. They rank in the top 5 in points allowed. They still have a great defense. They also rank in the top 10 in yards allowed per play. Roquan Smith, 101 tackles on the year. Khalil Mack, 8.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles. Keep in mind, Khalil Mack is often double-teamed, and they typically have a tight end, maybe chip down on him, even a running back for extra protection in the backfield. So Khalil Mack has been nothing but harassed this year, still has 8.5 sacks and 5 forced fumbles. Now, Chicago ranks in the top 10 in points allowed on the road. They're also in the top 10 in yards allowed per play on the road as well. Kyle Fuller, 3 interceptions, 78 tackles, 12 pass breakups. Now, Minnesota on the other side, they've locked up that 6th seed, so really nothing to play for. They might as well rest up. They will be traveling next week, regardless of what happens in this game. Now, total-wise, Chicago, 10-5 to the under on the year, 4-3 to the under when traveling. I'm going to lean toward the Bears plus 1. and the under 37 in that contest. Next game, good one. AFC North football right here, baby. Cleveland taking on Cincinnati, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff at Paul Brown Stadium. The Browns are the 3-point favorite on the road, total at 45. Pretty good two-way action with regard to the spread. Not a whole lot of movement there. We did see movement downward on the total. Cleveland open and remains -3. Total open 46 down to 45. 69% are leaning Cleveland, 59% shaded toward the over. Right now the Bengals are plus 130 on the money line. Now the Bengals, believe it or not, they've successfully covered the point spread in 3 out of their last 6. They did take Miami to overtime last week. They were down late in that game and really battled back to push it to OT. They played great. They scored 35 points in that matchup. They also ranked 12th in pass yards allowed at home. So keep that in mind. Cleveland, I get it. Cincinnati, I know they're hapless, but they could potentially make it competitive. I'm just saying. Now, Cleveland on the other side, losers in 3 out of their last 4. Who knows what the hell's going on with Freddie Kitchens? Rumor has it he's out. Some folks say he's going to stick around for another year. But Baker Mayfield definitely throwing him under the bus this week. This Cleveland squad is covering just 30% of their games in their last 10. They're ranking the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 10 in passing. Cleveland's just 2-5 straight up in their last 7 on the road, 2-5 against the spread in those 7 games. They're ranking the bottom 5 in rush yards allowed, bottom 10 in yards allowed per play on the road. Now Cleveland 4-3 to the under in their last 7, 4-3 to the under when traveling. Meanwhile, 3 out of Cincinnati's last 3 got over the total. So I know I'm, using conflicting info here, but Cincinnati's also 5-2 to the over at home. So I think I'm going to lean over in this one. I don't know why I wrote down conflicting info, but anyway, with all that said and done, I'm going to lean Cincinnati +3 and the over 45 in that game. Yikes. Next matchup, Raiders taking on the Broncos, and we're going to get into our afternoon slate here. 4:25 Eastern kickoff in the Mile High City. Denver's -3.5, total at 41. We saw a 0.5 point fade of Denver and movement downward on the total. Denver opened 4, down to 3.5. Total opened 41.5, down to 41. 59% are leaning Oakland, 57% shaded toward the over. Right now the Raiders are plus 150 on the money line. Oakland losers in 4 out of their last 5. They're also just 1-5 against the spread in their last 6. They rank in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 10 in points allowed. They're just 2-5 straight up away from home, 3-4 against the spread in those 7. The Raiders rank in the bottom 5 in yards allowed per play, bottom 10 in road scoring. They have outright losses to Jacksonville, the Jets, and Tennessee. Denver on the other side, 4-3 straight up in the Mile High City this year, 6-2 against the spread in their last 8. They rank in the top 10 in points allowed, top 10 in pass yards allowed. Denver's 8-7 to the under on the year. Oakland 5-1 to the under in their last 6. I'm going to lean Denver -3 after buying the 0.5 point, and the under 41 in that game. And the Raiders' last game as the Oakland Raiders will not be a happy ending. In my opinion, of course. You never know. All right, next matchup. It is going to be Cardinals taking on the Rams. 4:25 Eastern kickoff in Los Angeles. The Rams are the 7-point favorite at home, total at 49. The Rams are 6-3 against the spread in their last 9. Top 5 in passing. Jared Goff's thrown for over 4,300 yards on the year, 19 touchdown passes, 2 touchdowns rushing. Robert Woods, he's received over 1,000 yards thus far on the year. Cooper Kupp, 9 touchdown receptions for him. We're looking at a Rams squad who has successful covers over the likes of San Francisco, Seattle, and Chicago. The Rams also rank in the top 10 in pass yards allowed, top 10 in yards allowed per play. Aaron Donald, 12.5 sacks on the year. Dante Fowler, 11.5 sacks for him. And Clay Matthews, 8 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss. Now Arizona has lost 6 out of their last 8. They're just 3-4 straight up on the road. They rank in the bottom 10 in road passing, bottom 3 in road offensive time of possession. They're also ranking in the bottom 5 in points allowed, bottom 3 in pass yards allowed. Now, 3 out of Arizona's last 4 did stay under the number. They're also 4-3 to the under when traveling. Rams, 70% to the under in their last 10, 5-2 to the under at home, I'm going to lean LA Rams -7 and the under 49 in that game. Next matchup, Eagles taking on the Giants. 4:25 Eastern kickoff in the Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium. The Eagles are the 4.5-point favorite, total at 45. Pretty good two-way action on the spread. Not a whole lot of movement there. We did see a little bit of movement downward on the total. The Eagles open and remain -4.5. Total open 45.5 down to 45 even. 64% are leaning Eagles, 58% shaded toward the over. Right now the Giants are +175 on the money line. The Giants are also just 2-5 straight up at home this year, 2-5 against the spread in those 7. They rank in the bottom 5 in points allowed, bottom 10 in pass yards allowed. They've also given up 23 points or more in 8 out of their last 10. They're ranking in the bottom 10 in home scoring, bottom 10 in points allowed at home. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles are in a 3-game winning streak. They rank in the top 3 in offensive time of possession, top 3 in rush yards allowed. Brandon Graham, 7.5 sacks on the year, 2 fumble recoveries, 14 tackles for loss. Vinny Curry, 5 sacks on the year, 5.5 TFLs. This Philly squad ranks in the top 10 in road scoring, top 10 in rush yards on the road as well. Miles Sanders, 766 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. He's also got 510 yards receiving out of the backfield, 3 touchdown catches as well. So he's over 1,200 scrimmage yards for the year. And Jordan Howard looks like he's going to play this week. 6 rushing touchdowns on the year for him. He's also averaging 4.4 yards per carry. Now, Philadelphia is 5-2 to the over when traveling. Giants 9-6 to the over on the year themselves. I'm going to purchase the 0.5 point, slide it down, take Philadelphia -4, and the over 45 in that game. Next matchup, Colts taking on the Jags, 4:25 Jacksonville. The Colts are the 3.5-point favorite, total at 43. We saw a 0.5 point move toward the Colts and movement downward on the total. Indy open as the 3-point favorite, up to -3.5. Total open 43.5 down to 43. 71% are leaning Indianapolis, 53% shaded toward the over. Right now, Jacksonville is +165 on the money line. Jacksonville's lost 6 out of their last 7. They also failed to cover in 6 out of those 7 games. They rank in the bottom 5 in scoring, bottom 10 in points allowed. They have outright straight-up losses to Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Tennessee, and Indianapolis. This very Indianapolis team. They're also ranking in the bottom 5 in rush yards allowed. Now the Colts on the other side, a little bit different story. They rank in the top 5 in offensive rushing. They're also 4-2 against the spread in their last 6, 5-2 against the spread when traveling. The Colts rank in the top 10 in rush yards allowed. Darius Leonard leading the charge with 115 tackles, 5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss, 4 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. And keep in mind, he missed a couple of games this year. Justin Houston, 10 sacks on the year, 43 tackles, 3 fumble recoveries. This Indianapolis squad has successful covers over the likes of Tampa Bay and Houston twice. So they have successful covers against Houston 2 times. Indianapolis, top 5 in road rushing, top 10 in rush yards allowed on the road. They're also 3-3 to the over in their last 6, 8-7 to the over on the year. Meanwhile, Jacksonville, 5-4 to the over in their last 9, 8-7 to the over on the year themselves. I'm going to lean Indianapolis -3 after buying the hook, and the over 43 in that matchup. Next game, Steelers taking on the Ravens. And that's going to be a 4:25 Eastern kickoff in Baltimore. The Steelers are the 2.5-point favorite, total at 38. Now, we did see a flip of the line in this one. Pittsburgh, they opened up as the 1-point dog. We also saw movement downward on the total. So once again, Pittsburgh open +1, now -2.5. Total open 40, down to 38. 61% are leaning Baltimore, 66% shaded toward the under. Right now, the Ravens are +1.15 on the money line. Now, Pittsburgh has lost their last 2 straight games. They also failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6. They scored 17 points or less in 5 out of their last 7 ball games. They rank in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 3 in passing. They failed to cover against the likes of the Jets, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Miami. They also rank dead last in road scoring, bottom 3 in yards per play on the road as well. Total-wise, Pittsburgh 12-3 to the under on the year, 7-0 to the under when traveling. So once again, Pittsburgh 7-0 to the under when traveling. I'm going to lean Baltimore +3 after buying the half a point with their backups and the under 38 in that game. Next matchup. Titans taking on the Texans, 4:25 Eastern kickoff in Houston. The Titans are -3.5 on the road, total 45 and a hook. We saw a 2-point fade of Tennessee and movement downward on the total. Titans open 5.5 down to 3.5, total open 47 down to 45 and a hook. 52% are leaning Houston, 59% toward the over. Right now the Texans are plus $1.55 on the money line. Houston 5-2 straight up at home this year, 6-2 straight up in their last 8. They're ranked in the top 10 in passing, top 10 in rushing. DeAndre Hopkins has 7 receiving touchdowns on the year. He also has nearly 1,200 yards receiving on the season as well. Deshaun Watson, he's thrown for over 3,800 yards on the year, 26 touchdown passes. And Carlos Hyde, 1,057 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns on the ground for him. Houston has beaten New England and Kansas City outright this year. Tennessee on the other side, losers of their last 2 straight, 0-2 against the spread in those couple of games. They rank in the bottom 3 in offensive time of possession, bottom 10 in pass yards allowed. 8 out of Tennessee's last 9 got over the total. I'm going to lean Houston +4 and the over 45.5 in that game. Next matchup, Washington taking on the Cowboys, 4:25 Dallas. The Cowboys are the 10.5-point favorite, total at 44 and a hook. We saw a half a point fade of Dallas and movement upward on the total. The Cowboys open as the 11-point favorite, down to -10.5. Total open 44 up to 44 and a hook. 58% are leaning Washington, 67% shaded toward the over. Right now the Redskins are plus 410 on the money line. Washington 3-2 against the spread in their last 5, and they should actually be 4-1 against the spread as Philadelphia had that backdoor cover as time expired when they were doing the little pitch around play with 0 seconds on the clock. So anyway, Washington 3-2 against the spread in their last 5. Realistically, should be 4-1 against the spread in their last 5. They rank in the top 10 in pass yards allowed on the road, top 10 in yards allowed per play on the road as well. They have successful covers of the point spread against Green Bay, Minnesota, and San Francisco this year. Meanwhile, Dallas losers in 4 out of their last 5. They're 1-3 against the spread in their last 4 as well. They have outright losses to Chicago and the Jets this year. They rank in the bottom 10 in offensive time of possession. They also scored 15 points or less in 3 out of their last 5. 5 out of Dallas's last 8 did get over the number. Washington 4-2 to the over in their last 6 themselves. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take Washington plus 11 and the over 44.5 in that game. All right, next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Sunday night primetime. I'm talking about the Niners taking on the Seahawks, 8:20 Seattle. The Niners are the 3-point favorite, total at 47. 62% are leaning San Francisco, 53% toward the over. Right now, Seattle's plus $1.55 on the money line. Seattle's lost 2 out of their last 3, where they failed to cover in those 3 games. They rank in the bottom 10 in rush yards allowed, bottom 10 in yards allowed per play. They have outright losses to the likes of Arizona and the LA Rams this year. They also failed to cover against the likes of Carolina and Atlanta. They rank in the bottom 5 in pass yards allowed at home, bottom 3 in yards per play allowed at home. San Fran, on the other side, winners in 7 out of their last 10. They're 4-2 against the spread in their last 6. They rank in the top 3 in scoring, top 3 in rushing. They are 6-1 straight up away from home this year, 5-2 against the spread in those 7. San Fran 3-0 to the over in their last trio of ball games, 6-2 to the over in their last 8. Seattle 4-3 to the over in their last 7, 4-3 to the over at home. I'm going to lean San Francisco -3 and the over 47 in that game. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our quick pick recap. Once again, brought to you by patreon.com/BrockPage, where we are 4-0 in our last 4 crowd pleaser teasers on that website. I like San Francisco -3 over 47. Washington plus 11 over 44.5. Houston plus 4 over 45 and a hook. Baltimore plus 3 under 38. Philadelphia -4 over 45. Denver -3 under 41. Indianapolis -3 over 43. Rams -7 under 49. New Orleans -13 over 47.5. Jets plus 1.5 under 36 and a hook. New England -15.5 under 45. Chargers plus 9 under 46 and a hook. Green Bay minus 13 over 43. Cincinnati plus 3 over 45. Chicago plus 1 under 37. And last but certainly not least, I like Atlanta winning that one outright in the pick'em and the over 48.5 in that game. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we do daily premium picks on that website, beginning at just $1.99 per month. We have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to on that website. And once again, we are a perfect 4-0 in our last 4 crowd pleaser teasers on that website. You can check out my current record on that website right now for free. All you have to do is click the link in the description section below. It is right on the homepage. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our Spanish edition, also known as Edición en Español. Yo tengo San Francisco menos 3 y las altas, Washington con puntos y las altas, Houston con puntos y las altas, Baltimore con puntos y los bajos, Philadelphia menos 4 y las altas, Denver menos 3 y los bajos, Indianapolis menos 3 y las altas, Los Ángeles Rams menos 7 y los bajos, Nueva Orleans menos 13 y las altas, Nueva York Jets con puntos y los bajos, Nueva England menos 15.5 y los bajos, Los Ángeles Chargers con puntos y los bajos, Green Bay menos 13 y las altas, Cincinnati con puntos y las altas, Chicago con puntos y los bajos, y final Atlanta ganar y las altas. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/BrockPage. But most importantly, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Happy Christmas Eve to you. It is Christmas Eve. We're getting ready to get the festivities started. Happy Christmas Eve. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you on patreon.com/BrockPage.